Hi everybody, it's Librarian Faith from the Mandel Public Library of West Palm Beach. And today I'm going to show you how to create a no-sew pet bed. Let's get started, shall we? You'll need a couple of things in order to do this project. Firstly, you'll need some fabric. Now I am using about 2 1/3 yards of polar fleece. I highly recommend using polar fleece because that type of fabric doesn't fray. So wherever you cut, that's where the cut will end. It won't have any threads getting pulled out and the fabric slowly disintegrating over time. It pretty much stays this way forever. You'll also need an ink pen, a pair of fabric scissors. Paper scissors will also work, but they're not as sharp. And never cut paper using fabric scissors. A ruler, and a bed pillow. Now my bed pillow is already inside the finished pet bed, but you can also use a throw pillow or just a pre-cut piece of foam from some sort of sewing supply store. I'm able to get away with using a regular head pillow because I am making this for my kitten, Linda. She's only 6 months old, so she doesn't need anything too large. If you have a larger cat like a Maine Coon or a dog, especially a large dog, then you'll want to get that pre-cut foam because there won't really be a pre-made pillow big enough for them. The first thing we're going to want to do is cut the selvage off of the fabric. I've already cut the one side of the selvage off. We'll also want to cut off the top side. The selvage is used during the manufacturing process of the fabric, and it has little dots going along all of one side. We want to cut this off because if we leave it on, it can cause some warping during the sewing or whatever kind of project you're doing. Just going to take our handy dandy pair of fabric scissors and cut it off. For most any other sewing project, you'd want to do this laying flat on a table, but this isn't a high precision sewing project. This is a quick no-sew pet bed, and our pets don't really mind if some edges aren't exactly perfectly straight. If you do want it to be perfectly straight, then you'll want to do it laying flat on a table. Here's our selvage. Now I'm just using an old bed pillow as the base for this project. As I mentioned earlier, if you have a bigger pet, you might want to get a piece of foam from a sewing supply store. But I'm making this for a 6-month-old kitten, so she doesn't need a huge bed. You want to line the pillow up with the corner of the fabric, and you'll want there to be enough fabric on the edge so that you can roll it halfway up the pillow and there still be long enough length to tie it, because that's how we're going to secure the 2 pieces of fabric together. So you can see here, I'm doing about an extra 6 inches on either side for this cat bed. It doesn't have to be 6 inches specifically, and depending on your pet, it might need to be a little bit less or a whole lot more. Next, we're going to take our ballpoint pen. We're just going to make a little mark about another 6 inches from where the pillow ends. I'm going to use this ruler again just to be safe. And 6 inches ends right over here. There we go. So I'm going to take my handy dandy sewing scissors and cut a line down 6 inches away from the pillow. Okey-dokey. I'm going to push my pillow forward, making sure the fabric stays where it's supposed to be. You can use pins for this section if you'd like. And I'm going to mark another 6 inches down from the end of the pillow. So I have my ruler lying down in front of the pillow, and I'm going to mark another 6 inches. And then I'm going to cut across from the line we've already cut here all the way over to the other side. Okie dokie. Now we have the bottom piece of fabric for our pet bed. The second part is much easier because we're just going to throw our fabric back up on the table. And we're going to use our first piece as a pattern. I want to lay it out nice and flat. Okay. We have corners lining up with corners. Straight lines. And we are good to go. So, again, if you want to be 100% accurate, you'll probably want to pin this and make little lines about where the two different pieces meet. But this is for a pet bed. I'm not super concerned with everything being 100% perfectly accurate. And there we go. We have two pieces of polar fleece that is a foot larger than our pillow. This will be our covering for the pet bed. Now that we have our two squares of fabric cut out, we can go ahead and set our pillow down in the middle of our two fabrics. And let's see, we're gonna make sure everything's lined up appropriately. Looks about good. Okay, so now we're going to cut strips into the fabric going about 5 inches in. We don't want to go all the way in because this is rather a tall pillow. So I want there to be about 1 inch on each piece of fabric for it to meet in the middle. So as I mentioned, we're going to make about 5-inch cuts into the fabric. I'm just going to make a couple of little notes with my pen and ruler. 1. And 2. Okay, so we're going to make these strips about 1.5 inches thick. You don't want them to be too thin, otherwise they can start to pull and they won't be very secure. You want them to be thick enough in order to stand up to a pet's consistent ears. But now that I've made those first couple of cuts, I'm going to just keep going all the way around both pieces of fabric. See you in a couple minutes. Okay, so I've gone around the entire length of both pieces of fabric and I've cut the strips into them. I definitely recommend laying the fabric pieces on top of each other and cutting through both layers while doing this part of the project. It makes it line up a little bit better later on. You can see I also cut out the corners and it left me with some of this extra fabric. You want to do that because when you get to the corners, you'll just need those two pieces on either end in order to secure the pillow in place. But now that we're done, we can peel off that top layer, set it off to the side as we fold that bottom layer of fabric back down, and we can sandwich in our pillow. Okay, perfect fit right in the middle. And we'll lay our top piece of fabric on top of the pillow. You want to make sure that the right sides are facing out at this point. You can see that this side of the fabric is a little bit more vibrant and clear than this side of the fabric. So right sides facing out. We'll lay that on top and then we're going to go around the side, tying each strip together. And that's how we'll secure it in place. I'm going to start from the corners to make sure everything lines up appropriately. And just start tying them together. And here we have it, our finished pet bed. Isn't it adorable? Now the good thing about this is that since we just use a regular pillow and some fabric, it is fully machine washable. So just go ahead and stick it on in that washing machine whenever you need to. Now you can make this as big or as little as you'd like. If you want a smaller version of this bed, then using a throw pillow could be a great way to make it a little bit more manageable. If you want to make it smaller, you can get some pre-cut foam from any sort of sewing supply center. That can really let you customize exactly how thick and long and wide or whatever kind of dimensions you need. But I'm quite happy how this turned out, and I'm sure little Linda, my kitten, will also love how it turned out. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Be sure to tune in next time for another video. And until then, happy reading!